We're going to transition now to our panel of 4 muralists moderated by Mireya Gomez Contreras. Mireya stands for dignity, courage, and interconnection for herself and others. She's the daughter of farm workers who came to the US to work in the 70s, and her parents taught her deep love for her family, her Mexican roots, and education. She's a graduate of UC Santa Cruz, but the most insightful education is the one she's gained as a community organizer. And she's established her roots in Watsonville and is a co-leader alongside the lead farmer at Esperanza Community Farms. At Esperanza, they practice and are constantly learning about the power of local community-driven processes for social change. She is also Deputy Director of the Arts Council, Santa Cruz County. And now we'll pass it to Mireya to welcome our panelists. And please send any questions that you have via the chat, and we will hopefully have time to answer those with our panelists.
Thank you, Jen. And thanks for inviting me and inviting the panelists that I have the pleasure of interviewing today. I have been to straddle both kind of farming and art, and definitely have been two passions of mine for a very long time. So I feel a real honor and privilege. I'm a creative thinker and an ambitious dreamer, and a mother and a poet. And I've known for a long time in my life the power of art, and through my almost 5 years at the Arts Council, I haven't stopped seeing and finding ways that art is much more than a vehicle for justice, and a vehicle for joy and a vehicle for interdependence. So I'm hopeful that all of us will learn to see and listen to the artists, the panelists that are joining me now, about the many, many ways that art plays a really integral role in the way that we want to transform the way we live and the systems that we're in contact with all the time to create communities, local, regional, statewide, national, worldwide, that are going to bring about the kind of well-being and dignity for all beings in the world. So with that, I want to invite our panelists, who I know you can see now, to just answer some questions. Like Jen has already said, we will have, I'm hoping, time to answer a couple of questions, so feel free to write those in the chat. I want to welcome our 4 artists, Guillermo, Adriana, Irene, and Taylor. My first question to you is the following, and this is for you, Guillermo, first. Can you tell us how art has helped shape who you are?
It has allowed me to find myself. I'm an artist. I'm a natural born artist. My father was a painter, musician, craftsman. My uncles. I grew up around music and art, and I believe that was my calling from a very young age, and it has put me into my community. It has given me a place where I not only learn art, but I can share it with others, and so for me, it's given me a very powerful tool. I'm a muralist. I love to do murals, and for me, murals is about educating. About speaking out, resisting. Active. They call active resistance. I hope that was a proper answer.
Anything that comes out of your words is always heartfelt, for sure, and very real. And I've had the pleasure of calling Guillermo mentor, but I know he's a mentor for many of us, not only in this region, but beyond. I'd like to ask whoever's controlling the slides if we can just keep the cameras on and hold the slides for the next question. I want to move on to asking Adriana, who I had the pleasure of meeting through this forum. If you can answer the same question. So tell us how art has helped shape who you are.
Hi everyone, my name is Adriana. I also go by Adriana la Artista. I'm an artist, designer in the Goleta Santa Barbara area. But for me growing up, I always enjoyed making things, but as a child, I never imagined to pursue art or design as a career or a serious practice. But it wasn't until high school where I was recovering from an eating disorder that I realized how much design influenced me. And from then on, I pursued specifically graphic design, art, public art. And so I like to say that from the very beginning of my design journey, ethics was really important to me. So now today I use my art and my design to connect with people and build community and to share my story as a Chicana.
Thank you. Irene, tell us how art has helped shape who you are.
Buenas tardes, todos. My name is Irene Juarez O'Connell, and I am a Chicana visual artist, originally from Los Angeles. So growing up, I got to see a lot of murals, graffiti, just amazing art, but on walls. And when I was 17, my parents took me to la Ciudad de Mexico, and I got to just be immersed in looking at siqueiros, all of the amazing Mexican muralists. And I knew at that point, I said, I want to become a muralist. I want to study art and really develop that as a tool or a weapon, if you will, in my arsenal against injustice, because I felt drawn to the ways that muralists and street artists really break out of the institutional kind of gatekeeping of art for galleries and for murals. I wanted to bring art to people and people like myself and the community that I grew up in. I think I always knew that I was going to be an artist. My tia always reminds me, being 7 years old, and she said to me, maybe you'll be an artist one day. And I replied, I am an artist. So I think I've always known, and I'm so grateful to be able to share my art with young people in my life and in my community. And still growing and learning as an artist. And I think now in this stage of my career, I'm really deepening into what does it mean to be a social artist, a community-based artist. Yeah.
Thank you, Irene. And Taylor, tell us how art has shaped who you are.
Thank you. I was born in Santa Cruz, and my mother was an artist, and my father was a farmer, surfer, fisherman. So I grew up in an organic avocado and Meyer lemon orchard, and kind of had my hands in the soil at a young age. We had a boat, we fished, we lived off the ocean, we surfed, and yeah, my mom, and other times I was in my mom's studio just watching her create. So I didn't really have a chance. There was no like, you're going to be a doctor one day. It was like, you want to go write graffiti, don't get in trouble. So I kind of found my I found my art through graffiti and painting trains in the Pajaro Valley and throughout the Bay Area, and got into a lot of trouble at a young age, and found an outlet through basically having to do community service. And there, I was lucky enough to partner up with a muralist when I was like 17, and got to do community service and learn that, you could paint really big and you could have an awesome message about, to bring light into the community, and what's the best way to promote something, right? You see it on billboards everywhere. You see it on advertisement, and kind of taking the brush and the spray can and, weaponizing yourself with an activism and standpoint that you respect and love and which you want to put out into the world. And that's kind of how it caught up to me. And I started Made Fresh Crew in 2009 when I had just gotten out of college. It was a recession. Nobody had jobs, and I got a silk screen press and started making t-shirts. Started telling artists that if they made a design for me, that I would, print as many shirts for them as they wanted. And I was going to concerts and music events and just selling shirts for $5 a shirt, trying to make gas money to get home. 10 years later, now I have a 6,000 square foot warehouse with a 14 color automated press, silk screening machine, embroidery machines, crews of artists that do logos and graphic work. And then we spawned into murals and co-producing and creating art festivals and mural festivals. Specifically in 2021, I co-hosted the largest beautification project in Santa Cruz history with 25 muralists, and we painted 21 murals in 7 days, all on ocean conservation, which with Seawalls, which is an international mural foundation that I'm art director for now. And so currently my life revolves around flying around the world and painting murals on ocean conservation. So it's pretty amazing that I've been able to tap into that. And I never thought I would be doing that. And so that's where art's taken me.
Thanks so much. If anyone has not seen those seawalls in Santa Cruz, it's pretty amazing to take a half a day or maybe a full day and take that tour. Just after hearing all your introductions, and I do want to tell the audience, we're going to go a little deeper into the stories and of each of these amazing muralists in the next 30 or so minutes. But it's so clear to me that art, or at least the way I'm hearing you talk about your personal experience and kind of how art has shaped all of you, is there's a kind of a breaking free, and to think of and refer to art as a weapon is really powerful, kind of in and of itself. And it conjures up for me with such an imagination a lot of different ways that can show up. Standing in front of any of the murals in our region, and in particular, I'm from Watsonville and have deep roots here, and so I know the alleyways, the really incredible murals, and I want to thank you both Taylor and Irene for bringing up street artists, because I don't think that those artists oftentimes are given the platforms, and there's a lot that they have to say, and I hope that one of the actions that we take away is listening to those artists as well. So I'm going to move us into the next question, and this one will go for Guillermo. I want to come back to you and ask you the following question. What can you say about your artistic contributions and its role in the local efforts around climate change and social justice in general?
Well, I'm originally from San Diego, National City. Didn't come up this way till probably early 80s. But one thing I like to tell people was my involvement. My first mural project, the fall of 1969, I was a student at San Diego State. So I go back with murals over 50 years, 1970, we finished up that mural. I made that trip to Mexico right after that mural to see the work of all these artists. I took a very active part in initiating the first murals at Chicano Park in 1973. Historical point where we, as indigenous, as minorities, as Mexicanos, activists, Chicanos, exploded on the walls, exploded with expression, with color, with comments. San Diego, to me, initiated a whole series of explosions throughout California, the Southwest, internationally across this continent, in the early 70s. It ignited in San Diego. Those murals were about expressing things that we felt inside and had no, or felt that we had no other recourse of expression, you know. Murals today, I'm living here now in the Watsonville area. And I'm not just, I also did Aztec dancing for about 40 some years. So my involvement in community, which is what art does, painting murals, I work with groups. Right now I'm working on a mural, Cesar Chavez Middle School. And I'm working with students from the school there. I'm also people coming in on weekends, helping out with that. But I taught danza for 50, 60 students. So drum making, I've taught drum making, I've taught pottery, I've taught different things. So there's 2 areas of art that to me has shared. I passed on those things that I felt were very important, that gave me identity for one thing. And my art has always focused on us as indigenous people, because there's so many of us that don't even realize that we are indigenous people. I spoke to a group not too long ago, 5, 6 weeks ago, 5, 6 months ago, maybe. Nobody even knew, or if they did, said nothing, that they were indigenous people, And so I try to present imagery that they can identify with, to stir something in their minds, So I'm going on over 100. I'm coming to almost 100 murals. Okay, I'm about 96. In my lifetime. Since 1969. So, imagine I had one mural where I keep track of who participates. Freedom Elementary. I believe it was 1990, early 90s, 93, I believe. I had over 300 and some students, youth, paint on that mural, and one adult supervising, guiding, coordinating. Okay, over 300. So if I haven't had some schools I have the whole school population participate from 3rd grade on up, or so you're talking, kids coming through here constantly. But I try and do imagery, or in some way stimulate some kind of thought. I think identity, who we are, is really important, to identify who we are, because once we identify, we begin to search for our history and our culture. And we begin to make that connection back to the earth. And that's what we need to do in order to regenerate the planet, but to generate ourselves. So I don't know if I'm over my time limit, but that has been my contribution to social justice.
What you are, Theo, is a gift. That's what you are. You're a gift, and your almost 100 murals are gifts that have definitely impacted many, many people, youth and adults, and continue to. And I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's so much more that I could point to, including, and I'll be brief. Theo, I remember the time that you talked about one of the first murals that you were invited to do on one of the campuses at Pajaro Valley High School, Pajaro Valley Unified School District. There was an image that was embedded into your design that was about identity and Indigenous identity, and you were requested to remove that part of the mural. And so I want to share that briefly and just emphasize, in fact, that what you already spoke to in terms of identity and pride. And
yeah,
if you wanted to say Worth, and then I want to move
Yeah.
over to Adriana, but
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
powerful piece.
Yeah, when I first came to this area, you know, they wanted a mural at one of the schools, and they didn't give me any guidelines or anything. I'm from San Diego. I've been involved with the Chicano Park murals. We're putting murals up all over the place, you know, revolutionaries with their carilleras and their rifles and their hats and horseback and Quetzalcoatlus, and I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And so I come over here, sure. And I lay out this, I got eagle dancers, Olmec heads, you know, all these things that I feel are important, part of history of this land. And this the administrators look at it and they say, oh no, we can't have this. The kids don't know anything about this, you know. And I just kind of looked at them and I said, you know, I kept quiet, you know. But what I did was I started putting imagery. I started putting a lot of rainforest imagery. And behind that rainforest imagery, like these ponds, you know, you see these eyes speaking out at you, you know, jade faces and things of that nature, you know, coming out of there. Because that's all at that point. I had to put something in there. I wanted to continue. That's where the kids are in the school system, you know. If I'm going to work with them, if I'm going to start something, I need to do it right there. And so I had to find a way that you know, I didn't feel that I was totally stifled, you know, censored, or not censored, but just blocked out, you know. I could have walked away from no.
Yeah. Thank you, Guillermo. I love it when you go
So
like
anyways,
this.
yeah.
It speaks to the weapon that art is, right, and can be.
Now I go to a school and they ask me, can you know, portray some of the indigenous people of this area, or we want to feel this community welcomed. You know, we have a lot of people that have migrated up into these areas. We want them to feel welcome, and so they asked me to put imagery that makes them feel at home. You know,
belonging. Art as belonging. I'm going to move as thank you, Guillermo. Adriana, I want to ask you the same question. What can you say about your artistic contributions and its role to the efforts around climate change?
So a lot of my work centers around the contemporary Chicana poster, which grew out of my thesis project. I did my MFA in design at UC Davis. And so my thesis was a wheat pasted mural, which you'll see on the right there. And so I covered plywood with my posters that I made. And I think that a lot of my work is takes a non-traditional approach. So very much digital work, but also inspired by the Chicana movement of the 60s, where I go out and work with the community, you know, embracing rascuachismo. So I really wanted to show folks with my thesis that you can make beautiful things with just the simplest materials. So yeah, that's just copy paper and wheat paste on plywood. Also during, you know, just my process, I go out to a lot of protests and events, and I hand out my posters for free. And to me, I witness what my posters can do in a space when we're all holding the same poster, you know, trying to project the same message and how we create unity and community. And so I also want to make sure that my art is accessible to folks. So I always want to make sure that, you know, if it's not for free, that it's, you know, something that folks can afford and have in their home, because I think everyone deserves to have art in their home and enjoy public art as well. And I do my best to talk about the issues happening around us with my art, whether it's, you know, police brutality, women's rights, housing crisis, or climate change. But I feel like I want to be part of the conversation, and, you know, I'm not the best at speaking, so I do it through a visual medium. And also I want to encourage folks, you know, to take action as a community. You know, I think art is the beginning, as a spark, but there has to be that action part. You know, we can't do it alone. So I want folks to feel like we can trust each other, to be vulnerable and work together and plan and take that action to see those results. And so in the mural I did, which is located in Santa Barbara and Paseo Nuevo, I did with my friend Claudia Borfiga, who's also a printmaker, and that was both our first mural. It's a very large mural. So I did more of the wheat paste stuff, and she does silk screening and printing. So the fact that we both did this large scale mural was a blessing. And we really wanted to show that every living thing is important, right? From the dirt, from the toads, from the people, the flowers, the butterflies, like everything is important within the ecosystem. And each of us is important, you know, in the role of being climate leaders, right? And how we can learn from each other. So the images are, you know, specific to Santa Barbara area, and Claudia is really great with just expressing just like the nature and natural things around us. And I kind of brought in that more like human aspect of it. And I think most importantly, I wanted to show the importance of working with the indigenous community to protect the earth. And so my biggest contribution was the portrait of Mother Earth. And it was very much inspired by the indigenous women in my life who taught me the importance of taking care of the land. But yeah, it's been really great to work with the community with my art, and blessed that they, you know, let me come into this space to share my work with them.
Thank you, Adriana. I know one of the things that you brought up when we were preparing for this panel was your the way that you care about leadership in terms of its relationship to it. But the other things that you brought up just now is like art for the people, very simple but very powerful. Art as a spark for, yeah, which I think is just a theme over the course of the forum. And I can't stop looking at that mural. To me, it like really screams birth and rebirth, like this iterative, never-ending art, you know, birth and rebirth, birth and rebirth. And I guess with that, I know that you and Irene have that in common. Irene, the same question for you. What can you say about your artistic contribution and its role to local efforts around climate change and social justice?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so inspired right now. I think that, so my murals, I don't know if the slides will show, but one of my first big murals in Santa Cruz was at the Beach Flats mural. For those of you who don't know the history, in 2015, the city of Santa Cruz whitewashed 191 feet of the wall without permission from the community. And if those of you who are familiar with the Beach Flats know that the Beach Flats community is mostly Latino population, high density housing, and over-policed community. And I happened to be there organizing to protect the Beach Flats garden because it was under threat from being removed. And I had the privilege of, you know, being with the community in opposition to the whitewashing happening. So actually, if you could go back one slide, you'll see it's just one piece of the panel, but really it was a huge blow to the community to have that mural be erased pretty much overnight without any kind of community input. And so there was enough community input to say we need a proper public art process. And that's where I stepped in. I was fresh out of UCSC, where I did study public art and Latin American Latino studies. And this is probably was the biggest contract that I had ever applied for. However, I knew that any other person would not maybe know the very unique and particular like set of what the situation was in the community. So I applied for that contract and was awarded the grant. And my first thing was this needs to be a healing event, because there was so much hurt in that community. And also the original artist, Victor Cervantes, needs to be involved. So that mural was really about healing and placemaking and memory making. So all of the kids and the community members who are portrayed in this mural, as well as some of the jardineros, they themselves got to put their hands in this mural. They themselves got to paint themselves in almost an act of resistance, saying, no, you can't erase us. You won't erase our histories. We're here to stay, and our stories deserve to be told. So then actually in the next slide, kind of more along the lines of climate. So the Coastal Watershed Council invited me to do 2 murals around storm drains in the beach flats. So the one on the right, which is the Tlaloc mural, was done in 2019 with the help of lots of kids who live in the neighborhood in an effort to raise awareness around the health of the storm drains and the health of the river. The beach flats is situated right in the floodplains of the San Lorenzo River. And not only did we want to bring awareness to the importance of the storm drains, but we also wanted to bring, I wanted to bring some cultural relevance to the art. So portrayed here is Tlaloc, which is the Mexica deity of the waters and the rivers and the storms, as well as some of the endemic creatures of the San Lorenzo River area. And yeah, we actually used some of the same paint from the beach flats mural to get those vibrant colors. So that was one. And then 2 years later, we did the Alintak mural, which is another storm drain mural. If you can see that square on the left side, the square. And this time I wanted to connect. I wanted to connect the storm drain mural, the Tlaloc one, to the river. So my vision was to imagine what would it look like if we peeled back a layer of the concrete, if we literally peeled back the layer and let the river flow, and that direction of the mural is actually the waterway that the river would flow naturally. And we just let naturally regenerate and populate, what would happen? I don't know if you can see, but in the water, written in the river, is the words Alintak, which is Mutsun language for place of the red abalone, which Santa Cruz was named by the original caretakers of this land for all the red abalone that was present right along the shores and in the San Lorenzo River. Today, you would never find a red abalone. They're almost all completely gone. But in this mural, I did a lot of research to highlight specific species of flora and fauna that you would find in the river, including like the Western pond turtle, which in our San Lorenzo River, there's actually only one, and it's a very cherished one. But we need 2 to restore, right? There's some salmon in there. There's like California mugwort, California rose. And then it's so sweet to be there and watch kids, go with their toy cars, playing along the river, getting familiar with the species that are on that, enforcing and reinforcing this idea that we are caretakers, we are stewards of our home, which includes these creatures. So that's one. And then the next slide, I highlight a opportunity I had to join other climate activists to put up a renegade mural up right in front of the Exploratorium in San Francisco. And by renegade, I mean, we didn't have explicit consent from the Exploratorium to do this, but it was an action. It was a direct action because at that Exploratorium, there was a conference of insurance agencies who some of them were actually directly insuring pipeline projects. And at that time, there was still wildfires happening in Colorado and across the United States. And so we wanted to bring attention and awareness, especially to these insurance agencies. And then the title of the conference was called Risk World. So we took a play on that by saying, don't risk our world, through funding and backing up these pipeline projects and fossil fuel industry projects that are poisoning our planet. So all of these folks that you see on the right showed up with their personal banners and built a wall around us while we chalked and painted this mural in about 3 hours. It was incredible action, and it was during Climate Action Week in April. And on the bottom right, you can see some charcoal. That was actually charcoal collected from some of the wildfires, some houses actually that burned in Colorado that year. Collected the charcoal, mixed it with water, and made paint out of it. So all of the paint you see on this is non-toxic, it's tempera paint, but all of the browns is actually made with clay in a symbolic gesture to actually put earth on top of concrete, saying that you can't destroy our planet without us having a say. Like we want to bring ceremony into this too by inviting the land back into our action, into our art. So we actually had a prayerful moment while the charcoal paint was going down in the ash part of the smoke part of the design. We had a drummer and a thing while that painting was happening. So that was an amazing event because we had kids and like all generations present in that, and just no one really even knew each other that much. We just came, we painted, and we all knew that we had to speak up and stand up in this way, even if we didn't have the most, it wasn't the most legal thing. Yeah, and then one more contribution or example I want to share on the next slide is uplifting Indigenous voices, as I've heard so many of my fellow panelists speak to. I think climate justice is Indigenous justice. Climate justice is reproductive justice. There's so many intersections when we're talking about climate. And for me, one of the biggest solutions moving forward is restoring land stewardship and land back to Indigenous communities and Indigenous caretakers. So I was invited by the Amamutsun tribal band to be their lead artist in the Protect Uristock campaign. And it's probably the biggest campaign that they're in the history of their tribe have embarked on out in Gilroy. Their sacred land, really that's part of their creation story, is threatened by a mining company that want to do a gravel mine out there in Gilroy. So they invited me to work with the tribe, and especially work with the youth of the tribe to create art and create visual impact for the big rally that we had at the Santa Clara County Commission building. And as you can see on that top right or top left corner, all of the tribe, wearing orange with their art designs, showing up so strong. It's just, it really brings this sense of presence, and that we're cohesive, that we're coordinated, that we're organized, and we know we know solutions that are going to be real. And so I think bringing art into the mix from the beginning, right? Because sometimes we see marches or rallies and art is an afterthought. It's like, oh yeah, make a sign really quick, make a banner really quick. It doesn't sometimes look as if we're all that organized. So having a very specific color palette and specific language and messaging and design right from the beginning as a central piece to the organizing, I think is so critical. Like artists are, they need to be at the table when it comes to organizing campaigns, because artists are holding visions, artists are holding what's possible. So I consider myself a cultural worker because art is culture, right? Art is power, art is resistance. So bringing in artists to help activate those kinds of radical imaginations, I think is what our movements need moving forward, to really invite artists to the table. Yeah.
Thank you, Eden. I'm taking away healing placemaking and memory making, but also the really powerful and idea of art being an afterthought. So I want to encourage members, if there's such strong nonprofit presence here. Let's put art at the table from the beginning. Let's make it coordinated. Let's make it organized, because the reach is much wider when there is art. It's a there's that term, full body experience. I think art is more about a full being experience. And so I guess with that, I want to move on to you, Taylor. When I first stood in in front of one of those seawalls in Santa Cruz, I had one of those Grand Canyon moments where I felt insignificant. I just was like, this man eating a fish underwater, this man in a suit, and I think it moved me to tears, and I couldn't even explain why, but there was a story. As we were preparing for this panel, you said, and I wrote it down, you said, think local, act global. And so my question for you is, you're traveling everywhere. Clearly, you have a clear message through your, at least your more recent works in terms of the protection of the oceans. What is possible through the arts beyond our region? Beyond the state, beyond the United States, in terms of the overlap of art and climate justice. You're muted.
Thank you to all the speakers as well. That was very moving listening to all of your words. And I think my personal journey was found through going to other countries to paint graffiti, because I'm in a few international graffiti crews, and there's chapters around the world. And so through the internet, I was able to go to parts of Europe, South America, Brazil, even parts of Africa, and link up with artists the day I got there through the internet. So they showed me the places to paint, safe havens. They got me inspired. It was a lot easier to navigate and put your art up. When I came back to America, I realized that all these permits we have to do and these hoops we have to jump just to put art up on the wall, and my whole purpose became different. So like for this mural, for instance, I donated this mural to the gallery downtown in Santa Cruz because I felt like it needed to be painted. And I collaborated with a couple of my friends during a show we had at the gallery called Street Smarts, where we had a bunch of my fellow Made Fresh Crew artists showing their work. And for this show, I actually had painted another mural for the city of Santa Cruz in the sign shop where they make all the signs. And I went into the back of this yard, and there was just all these street signs that had just had been hit by cars, or they had been tagged on, and I found that they needed somewhere to go. I'm like, where are you guys recycle these? And they're like, no, we just throw them away. So I took all the signs. Can I start getting these, and created a bunch of pieces based off of those signs. And that's kind of the way that I've interacted with like community, is finding a space to, for instance, this mural for the Clean Oceans on Mission Street was one of my first big projects, where it was a 800-foot wall that had been tagged. It was blank. I went to the city and I proposed, hey, how do we get this painted? And they said, oh, well, we don't know who owns the wall. So there was all these different entities involved. And I went to the school district and said, how much do you pay to paint over the graffiti for this project? And so we worked with their budget. I worked on a matching mural grant, and then it took about 2.5 years, and we had 1,400 contributions from the community. I brought 10 artists into the project. I even had 2 of my friends from Brazil that I lied to the city and flew them out here and paid them illegally to paint it with me. And so if anyone's in the city of Santa Cruz right now, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's Fame right there, who's painting in the bottom. He's originally from New York, graffiti artist, and then I met him in Rio de Janeiro. And they took me painting every day for 3 months in the favelas. We did multiple graffiti murals for over 65 national artists. I was one of the only gringos. And every weekend we would paint the favelas in Brazil, and it just blew my mind. I couldn't believe I was painting over people's front doors, and they were so excited and happy for me to come all the way from California to do that. And that's what really inspired my journey as an artist, was being able to paint also in parts of Tanzania for the Tanzania School Foundation. I spent about 2 months painting schools just through the internet, just through finding people that saw what I was doing. And so that last mural, the Mission Street mural, led me to the Seawalls project, which basically I know I'm about to be going over, but I got to meet the director at a Patagonia a conference in Santa Cruz, and he saw the mural on Mission Street and asked if we wanted to do a project for Santa Cruz. So I spent 3 years fundraising $120,000 to invite 25 muralists, and I got to handpick some of my favorite artists from around the world. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, because I had to find all the walls. I had to knock on the doors and tell the landlords that they didn't get to choose what was going to be up on the mural. They didn't know who the artist was until the week before, and I had to juggle all of these things and work with the city for them to allow me to do this. So it got stopped because of the fires. It was set for September of 2020, and then the pandemic. So it was canceled twice, and I got to see the world stop and tell me, like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And then once we finally made it happen, it was like the most incredible project I've been able to be a part of. And now I'm on the operations team for Seawall. So we've painted over 600 murals worldwide. I work on the operations team. So I show up 2 weeks early. We do 30 to 40 murals for these events in a 2-3 week span. And this was a project in Boston about right-wing whales being killed from the crabbing industry. And so this was a 5-story building. I worked 16 days straight doing all the prepping the paint, doing safety operations for all the other muralists to make sure that they're set up, just running food to them every day, running supplies. That's my job. And then at the last 3 days of the event, the operations team gets our walls. So they're like, here's your 5-story building. You get 2 days to paint it. So we just jammed as quick as we can. And that's kind of the job that I do now. We just make sure we're there for artist support, and then we continue. So we've done over 600 murals in 17 countries, and we continue to do that. This was a Vote for the Environment campaign led by Pangea Seed Foundation during 2020, where we had over, I think, 900 submissions. And it was kind of when everybody was stuck inside, we got to put out create a Vote for the Environment poster and then submit it onto the platform, and anyone could print these and put them up. So it's kind of like a wheat pasting campaign during 2020 and all the crazy year that we had environmentally and just politically. And so this was a cool campaign that we kind of got to get behind and had artists from all around the world submit designs for. And that's kind of what Pangea Seed and Seawalls has inspired. And the artists that they work with, it's like a science camp for professional muralists. So you get to meet each other, you get to work with your up and coming artists, you get to work with top tier muralists, and everybody kind of works together and learns from each other. And it's just this beautiful family that you create. And you can kind of see the artists like myself. I kind of got swept into the activism. I didn't, I was an activist in my own right by being, a graffiti artist, but I was more of a rebel. And, now I've been able to go to places, and give back from all the, vandalizing that I had been doing for years. So, but it's definitely taken me into a different route. I don't think I would have had so much of I do a lot of other social justice work as well. I think I get coined more of like the environmentalism and the ocean conservation because I've been doing a lot of those locally. But I was also a co-founder of the Santa Cruz Equity Collab, and we, installed the Black Lives Matter mural in Santa Cruz and have been dealing with all the effects of that, which now is pretty devastating because when you look it up, it's the first thing you see is the tire marks and the vandalism that happened. And so now we're actually working with, restorative justice. We're making sure that, we're kind of creating our own way within the court system and within like the system that's pretty broken, because there is no such thing as restorative justice. They don't really know what to do. They're asking us for help because we're like, fix the mess that you made and come help support what we're doing. And so there's a lot that I'm learning. I've been just constantly every year is more and more. This is a recent mural we did with UCSC at Rachel Carson College, and we worked with the students, and they got to choose the quote, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children," which I thought was a really fun, beautiful quote. And kind of just through some, I couldn't say they're indigenous species because there's a sea turtle and it's more of a Pacific Islander sea turtle, but there's a local fox and a big herring. And so this one was just a really fun mural that I got to kind of, I hadn't painted for about a year before this, as I stopped kind of painting for myself, working on the Seawalls project. And then after that was all said and done, I kind of just went on a rampage painting as much as I could. And so that's kind of what I've been focusing on and working towards is just creating spaces for artists to collaborate and paint. Made Fresh Tree also stands for Motivate, Facilitate, Collaborate, MFC, or moving forward constantly. So I think community and collaboration is what I'm really about. And thank you guys for having me speak today.
Community and collaboration could have been the title of the forum. I think we don't have more time. Gosh, I think you left us all with like these incredible teasers, and I know the audience. I definitely want to like have a 3 or 4 hour session with all together. But the things that I picked up from you is a lot about the technical barriers to just putting up public art. And so for those of you that have any power, that do you have power and privilege and authority to make those changes, please do. You know, as an Arts Council representative, that's definitely one of them. Paying attention to how we can open up those doors for it to become easier. The cross-border, experience, I think, Taylor, comes across really strongly. And then, of course, caring for artists, like you talked about safety and giving them food. And as I've been following Guillermo's active mural now, someone's narrating everything that's going on throughout the day. And it's a lot. It is community building and collaboration. So thank you so much, Taylor. We don't even have time for chat questions. But I guess, and it's hard to wrap it up, but I definitely am left with a lot of curiosity. Me dejan la boca con mucho querer saborear más, like I want to taste more. For all of you artists in the room, Arts Council has our spring grant cycle open. Pay attention to what's happening, especially in Pajaro Valley in the arts, but I think countywide and statewide, the arts are getting a lot of momentum and attention, especially in terms of how they overlap with social justice movements, climate change, environmental justice, mental health and healing, housing. And so the arts are making a mark. The arts are, and you're putting it on the map. So thank you, Guillermo. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Adriana, la artista. Take ownership for that. And thank you, Taylor, for all your work worldwide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm passing it on. There you go, to Jen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Medea, and all of our panelists for your amazing work and stories. Yeah, we definitely wish we could spend so much more time with you all. And we'll be sharing, all the artist channels and upcoming events and the follow-up from this webinar. So look out for that.